whole 60s?
We didn't do too much rocking and rolling.
No.
As a matter of fact, we let that go by us completely. We saw other people do it, but we didn't do it.
You
No.
didn't have favorite bands?
What's that?
You didn't have any favorite bands?
I liked most of the bands we had.
Benny
They were
Goodman.
really, they
Was
played
he-
soft music.
Was Benny Goodman in a band, or he was solo?
Oh, he was he played the clarinet.
Oh, Benny Goodman was terrific.
Star. He was marvelous.
Absolutely.
He played both as a soloist and with a group. Yeah.
And like when like the 60s rolled around, that whole tumultuous change period.
Well, that's when the young people began to rebel.
Right. How did you react to that? I mean, what were your impressions, what were your feelings of what was going on?
Some of the things I didn't like at all. I saw riots at Columbia University, and I didn't like that at all because I felt that they were rioting for nothing. They demanded their right to dictate to the university what should be done, what shouldn't be done, what should be taught, what shouldn't be taught. And I said, these people are itinerants. They come into the university and they're only going to be there 4 years, if that long. And they're dictating the policy of the university. They have no right to do it. The university had directors, board of directors and so forth, most of whom were reputable people, people with a reputation. Here you got young kids who barely had a high school education are now dictating to the world what should be done and what shouldn't be done. And half the time they were dopey.
But that in those days, that all the kids were that
A lot
way.
of them were, yeah.
And then, as time went on, these kids became very conservative.
How about
stockbrokers?
Yeah. Some of the
talking
big
about
radicals
Abby,
became stockbrokers.
what's his name? Abby.
not
yeah.
Abby Hoffman? It was the other one, Reuben.
Yeah, he was a wild kid when he became a stockbroker, a rich.
How about talking about Broadway in the 30s and the 40s and?
Oh, it was.
Broadway was a very lovely
It
street.
was very exciting to walk down Broadway with
How about
all
the
their
Dickfield
lights.
Follies? Did you
Safe,
ever go to that?
nice
The
people.
Dickfield Follies were wonderful. There, not too many people go. I remember one of my first Broadway experiences was the Hippodrome, where my Uncle Sender took me to see some elephant act in the Hippodrome. Oh, I was so excited. I didn't realize that I was in the top of the Hippodrome, one of the cheapest seats available. You know, you had to hold on, and you had to use an oxygen tank. It was so high. But I didn't know that. I enjoyed the...
I loved going to Broadway. We used to get tickets for 50 cents in the last row or $1.
Do you remember
and we
Gray's?
saw all those beautiful shows.
Gray's Drugstore.
Oklahoma,
There's a-
Carousel.
There was a drugstore on 43rd Street in Broadway, Gray's Drugstore. And down in the basement, they used to sell tickets, discounted tickets. Now, here's how they worked it. If the theater didn't sell out, let's say by 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever tickets were left would be shipped to Gray's Drugstore. And we would be online
They still
buying
have
tickets.
that.
They
Even
still do?
today they sell tickets.
Not in Gray's Drugstore, but some other
somewhere
place.
43rd Street. I don't know where.
Yeah, on Broadway, you can still buy a discounted ticket.
However, there was so many wonderful Broadway shows.
Sure.
Oh,
I look back and you don't see them today.
Well, they have
King
good
and I.
yeah, they have revivals. I took Alana to see Showboat.
Showboat was beautiful. It was really beautiful. I saw it several times.
but now
Oklahoma.
there's a problem going down to Broadway. A problem. Many people don't want to go by subway, and to go with a car, you have to pay a lot of money for parking.
Also, the tickets, the last row for Showboat was $55 a ticket.
See, I would
Well,
never.
that would be 50 cents.
I would never spend that. You see, I wouldn't do it. It's a beautiful production, really. It's beautiful.
I wanted her to see it.
Well, it's okay.
Well, you go. You don't go often. That's all. You go.
You know that in the times when we were growing up, very few people earned $50 a week. Very few people earned that. When I started working regularly in the post office, I was making, it was a $1,500 or $1,700 a year.
I don't know.
A year.
I think
it
it's
was
17.
$1,700 a year. And then if we worked for a whole year, we would get $1,800 up till $2,100. Then you had to work about 10 years and you get $2,300. That was the salaries in those days. And the post office was a good salary.
Yeah, but
Teaching
also
was
the rent.
$1,500.
You pay $30 a month for an apartment or something.
Yeah,
That's
they
true.
were much cheaper, sure.
So
My first apartment was, I think, $48 It was a real deluxe apartment for which you probably pay $1,000 now. And everybody thought I was so extravagant to spend that much for rent.
Was that on what?
Where
$48
was this
a month.
apartment?
Is that on what's the name?
No, it was near where Dr. Grant used to be,
Oh,
Evergreen Avenue.
Evergreen.
It was not the same building, but the one next to it. It was a brand new building.
I remember Grandma Holman's apartment on Crotona Park East, and she used to have the boarders. Leon
Yeah.
was one boarder, and who were the other? Morris, I think she had somebody. And we used to
Crotona
go
Park.
there for Seder's. And
Crotona Park was a nice park. Unfortunately, it became the victim of minorities. The city invested a huge sum of money, put in a pool, an outdoor pool, a beautiful swimming pool in Crotona Park. And in a short period of time, the kids broke into Crotona Park and ripped out all the plumbing of the swimming pool. And that was the end of the swimming pool. Then Herman Ritter came into the act, my school, and we came to the act. Saul Sigelship was a tennis player, and so he prevailed upon some of the biggest companies that sold rackets and tennis balls and things like that. And we got them to subsidize us. We built tennis courts in Crotona Park, and we got rackets and balls that we used to play in our gym. Saul Sigelship was wonderful. He got all these things free for the kids. And then later on, I was in charge of the languages, among other things. I was the supervisor of foreign languages, and we had French, Spanish, Hebrew, sometimes Italian. And I was the supervisor. And we had science, I was the supervisor. Math, I was the supervisor. Audio visual, I was the supervisor. We had 5 assistant principals and a couple of unofficial assistants, but I was a supervisor of a lot of areas. I was one of the first people in the city to get a language laboratory, and it was a wonderful laboratory.
earlier we were talking about World War II and in Japan with the Hiroshima and the bombing and all that. I don't know if you know this, but Dr. Grant was an officer on the island where the Enola Gay went off. And at that time, all of his superior officers were ill with hepatitis, and he was in charge of the base.
I didn't know that.
And he did not know about this mission. But he told me that the Enola Gay went off, and when he came back, they had parties for 3 days on the island. And at first he didn't know what was going on, but he was the commanding officer of the island because the others were sick.
Well, the Japanese people took a terrible beating. Unfortunately, a lot of innocent civilians died.
That's right. That was a terrible thing.
It was a terrible thing. But if you stop to think of it, contrary to what you keep reading, I think it ended the war very rapidly.
Well, you know, there's a debate going on because they thought that the Japanese were on their last legs anyway. At that
It's
time.
possible. We didn't have.
So we don't
didn't
know, but
Are you recording now?
yeah.
But I'll tell you frankly, as far as I was concerned, I never felt sorry for bombing them. I wish we could have done
You
more.
and the Chinese. The Chinese don't feel sorry either.
No. No, well, the Japanese earned it. They really earned it. You know, to this day, the Japanese have never apologized for attacking us.
We never apologized for Hiroshima either. I don't
We
think.
did.
Oh, did we?
We gave money. We contributed money for various purposes, and we did express a regret for having bombed them. The official government did. The United States government did.
Didn't they take the Japanese people for medical care into this country?
They did a lot of that too.
During the war, they interned a lot of Japanese Americans.
Which was a terrible, terrible thing to do.
What did you know about that?
I only know one thing, that a lot of these Japanese people, many of them were born in the United States, many of them were American citizens, and they had their property taken away from them, their farms were taken away from them, and they were interned as suspects. Everybody felt that if you're a Japanese, you're going to spy for the Japanese.
What about the Germans?
Well, they didn't do that with the Germans, strangely enough. I don't know why they didn't. But here's the thing with the Japanese. They formed a battalion of Japanese soldiers who were the most, for the American Army. And they were, I think, the most courageous group in the entire American Army, and very successfully
Where did they
fight.
Where did they fight?
I think possibly in Italy and then maybe into Germany too. They were wonderful, wonderful, heroic soldiers. That was a Japanese, all Japanese group.
What did you know about who and what was Mata Hari?
We only knew she was a spy. They had a German girl singing all the time. Lily Marlena, she was singing something like Lily Marlena. She would come over, and you could pick it up on a radio, on our radio, we would pick it up. She'd be telling the fellows, why don't you quit? Why don't you go home? Don't you have a loved one at home? Wouldn't you like to be in the arms of your wife or your lover?
Was that Axis Sally?
No, there was a German girl.
Axis, there was someone they called Axis
Maybe
Sally.
so,
Tokyo
maybe so.
Rose and Axis Sally.
And Tokyo Rose was on the other side.
Yeah.
But this German girl, we heard her. She had a soft voice, really a sweet voice in many ways. And I don't think she converted a single American soldier, as far as I know. But it was a propaganda device. The Germans used a lot of propaganda. They used a lot of propaganda during the war, where they would get people, as I said, like Kennedy and Lindbergh and people like that, who were telling us, get out of the war, get out of the war, get out of the war, support the Germans, they're going to beat the Russians are communists, you got to beat the communists, support the Germans, oh, we'll have all of Europe will become communist, things like that. There was a lot of that propaganda that went on by American citizens. They supported the Germans.
What?
But it was an ugly war.